In this episode, I'm going to try to repair something I've never worked on before, and that is a Sony DVD recorder with a hard drive built in. I've never had to fix one of these before because these came out after I left the service business, but I got one in from a client. It's completely dead, so we're going to take a look and see whether I can figure out what's wrong with this and, more importantly, get it working. This was the Sony RDR HX750 DVD recorder with built-in hard drive, and it's completely dead. No power. Nothing. The fact that this one's completely dead means I probably have to look at something in the power supply that's gone bad. So this one here, here's the power supply over here. Let's check for standby voltages. So let's connect the power up and see whether we get any life at all on this power supply. First thing we'll do before applying power, just verify the fuse is not blown, which is not, so we know that there probably has not been a catastrophic failure of the unit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's any AC power being rectified into DC. So we'll just check these capacitors here and see whether there's any potential across them. And now someone's probably thinking, why are you measuring between the two negatives? Well, that's because a lot of times they put these caps in series in a voltage doubler. So there would be potential between the two negatives. If we look from the negative of one of the caps to the diode here, we have 163 volts. So we do have power getting into the primary side. We've got 3 volts here. Okay, that looks promising. That probably should be higher than 3 volts. 2.5, 2.3. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking for my 5 volt standby, because if I don't have any standby voltage, nothing else is going to work. 5 volts, so the standby supply is working. So that means the power supply is starting. We look down here, we've got our 5 volt rectifier here. This one here is only coming up at 3 volts, so we may have a problem in this side of the power supply, because I think that's probably supposed to be a little higher voltage than that. It's probably supposed to be a 12 volt regulator. I'm going to pull the power supply board and we'll take a look at some of the components in here. Maybe we got a leaky cap or an open resistor, or even a bad connection, or even could be this diode that's bad for that matter. It's only 3 volts here, so I think it's supposed to be a bit higher than that. Sounds like a few geese out there. I'm going to remove the power supply on this unit. I want to just take a look at it. The 5 volt supply was there, but there was no other voltages. There was no other standby voltages, and this should have more than one voltage on it that's always on, because I think this has a vacuum fluorescent display on it, and that's going to require some voltage to drive that, which should come off of the power supply itself. Okay, there's the power supply out, so I can check things like common things like capacitors for high ESR. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the caps on here and make sure none of them have gone high ESR. So here's a relatively close look at the power supply. As we noted before, the 5-volt supply was working, but the other one, there was no power. And everything's sourced off of a common transformer. So with the two power supplies here, if we've got power on one winding, we're going to have power on the other winding. And I wasn't seeing any power in the 12-volt or other supplies. So I'm going to take a look, and first of all, some of these solder connections look atrocious. Look at some of these ones here. They just look horrible. So it could even be a bad connection, I guess, is causing this problem. But we're going to check the ESR first. And I'm going to go over all these connections that look like they could be kind of cold, and we'll reheat them and see whether we get any difference in the way that this thing performs. Which, I mean, it's dead. It's doing nothing. It's not starting up. But we do have some voltages on here. And this power supply can probably even power this up without it being in the unit, because it's got its own power plug here. So as soon as I plug this in, I should have voltages here on the secondary. So I should be able to test it without it even being installed in the unit itself. These caps all look to be good. I'll spare boring you watching me test all the caps, but I can assure you that all the caps, the ESR is very low on them all, so it's not a capacitor problem. I'm just going to try and resolder some of these connections on the transformer and the rectifier diodes, and some of the regulator transistors here. I'm going to do all of these ones. Some of these ones certainly don't look to be very good. Lead-free solder crap, right? to the regulators. I'm giving the board a close inspection now, looking for any ones that I may have missed, because sometimes they don't show up at different angles. From the angle I'm looking at, it might look different than what you're seeing on camera, so I'm just going over looking for any ones that still look suspect, and I'll take care of them. Just gonna check, there's some circuit protectors on here. We'll make sure that they're okay. 201, 204, 401, 402, and 501. So where are these 204s here? That one's okay, and 402 is over here. This one is 201 down here, 401 over here, and where's 501? That's 501 over here. So the circuit protectors are all okay. I've resoldered the board, and we're going to plug this in and see whether it's going to come to life. Now that the board has been, say, there's a couple connections on here that didn't look to be terrific, so let's find out whether I've made any progress whatsoever. So pop the board back in, and drop it in place. The 3 screws in to hold the board in. The ones that's important is obviously the ground screw here is the really important one. I'll put the other 2 in as well and reseat the connectors, and then we'll plug this thing in and see whether we get any smoke or whether we get any power. Obviously, I'm hoping that I don't get smoke. And then I can phone the guy. Oh, that'd be great if I can get this working. This belongs to a customer who has put his home movies, his home videos onto DVD, and then only to find that the DVDs created from this machine, I guess he didn't finalize them when he finished recording them, and they won't play on a regular DVD player. And then this went dead before he finalized his discs, so it's kind of hoping that this can be made functional so that he can finalize all of his discs that he made from his camera. So hopefully that's all that it was on this, was some bad connections. Moment of truth. Power. Oh, I see something. Welcome. Whoa, whoa! I hear a hard drive starting up. The display's not very bright. It's hard to see in this bright light, but it says welcome. Open. It opens. Incredible. That looks like that's all that was wrong with this thing. Was a bad connection. Probably on one of these diodes, because there was one of the voltages was low. This is all I've done on this is I just resoldered the connections. I haven't changed no parts. I just reflowed what you saw me do on that board. And the display's not very bright on this thing, but you can see the DVD. I got a lot of light in here. You can see the DVD light. It's lit up here, and after I press that when the HDD light comes on, I'm going to hook this up to the TV and see if it plays. And I can phone the guy and give him the good news that I got his DVD recorder going. He'll be really happy. So I plugged this thing into my composite input on my TV, and I got nothing. Then I realized he's probably got it in HDMI mode. So I just plugged it into my monitor, and as you can see, they got stuff they recorded off TV on the unit itself. So the unit is working.
Rule number 14.
Very happy. Let's see what, if I go to HDD, I don't know. I don't have the remote for it, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to access anything on the hard drive, because I'll need a remote for it more than likely. I have a remote for one of these that just don't have any batteries in it. I'll have to go dig it up. I haven't used my, I have a very similar, oh, but you know, it does work. Well, I don't need to show that because that's his home videos that he's put onto the hard drive. So it works. So that's it. This one's fixed. Yeah, check solder connections on here. Check those circuit protectors that I tested too, because those are like ICPs, but they're surface mounted version of ICPs, and they can go for no reason whatsoever. But in this case, they weren't blown. It was just the solder. It's got to be a solder connection, because that's all I did on here was just reflowed the coils down here, and I did the regulator transistors, the diodes, the capacitors, and well, you guys saw what I did anyway. That's all I did on this. Did nothing else, and it's working. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell if you want to be notified of my new videos. And I've got some more audio stuff coming up. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.